What's up guys? Today I'm going to be going through some Earth Machine test hands for the August 2023 format. So let's get started. Just go through a couple of test hands, give my insight on how I think about playing this deck, what I want to try and get. Alright, so let's get going. So first of all, a good shuffle. Okay, I'm starting off with a Book of Moon, so good. I've got the Gear Frame, that's okay. Drawn Trencher, drawn Citadel, and Urgent Schedule. So here I'm just assuming that everything's going to be going first. Going second, obviously a bit different. You have 6 card, you're playing interboard, so with test hands it's just a bit easier to think about going first. For going experience going second, you're just going to want to just do some testing, play games. So looking at this hand, I'm just going to keep the cards laid out on the table so you can see. So first of all, obviously we've only got one normal summon, which is our Gear Frame, and Gear Frame isn't the full combo by itself. However, we have Trencher, Citadel in our hand. Trencher in particular is going to be helpful as an extender, and if we get access to Fortress, then we can do some plays from there. So starting off, what we will do is we'll go to main phase and we'll normal summon this, use the effect. So that's just going to add our Uncle Spare. New chain. I'm going to activate this as chain link 1 and hope we don't get drolled. So this will special summon. And now we'll use the effect to send from deck to grave. That's going to be Fortress. So here I'm thinking, how can we get into our River Stormer? That's basically what we want to try and do. We have Trencher, we have access to our Harvester, but we don't have the right levels for Fortress. So what we will do here is I will summon the DGX, activate the ability to add, and that'll just add our Harvester here. And what we can do is, because we have Fortress and Citadel, we can just special summon Fortress by pitching our Citadel, and now we can link summon into our Platinum Gadget. And this is the reason why I play Platinum Gadgets, because it helps with hands like this to get your Harvester out onto the field. So we'll activate the effect. Because we're only machine locked, we can make the Platinum Gadget, since it's light, to special from our hand the Harvester to the zone. And we'll activate the effect of our Harvester, and that will add from my deck to my hand the Dozer, which still doesn't have a foil printing, unfortunately. So now what we need to do is try to fuel up the graveyard for our draw 2, because we've only got one non-engine card. This deck relies on drawing non-engine cards in the 7 cards you will draw throughout the course of the match, of course of the game, going first. So we do want to link this off into the Goliath, and we use the effect of Dozer. Dozer can only tribute Earth Machines for cost, but we will have a way of removing the Platinum Gadget from the field. And then we can use the effect of Dozer. We have the second Trench in our hand, but we don't want our opponent to know that, if they actually know how the deck works. So we just summon the other Trencher from the deck, and that's completely fine. That's the reason why we play 2 Trenchers and not the new level 5, because you just see us going, you still don't know what we have. Where if we summon a card that's not Trencher, people who are familiar with the combo will think, oh well, they've probably drawn a Trencher, and then they can work out like we only have 2 other cards compared to the Trencher. So it just helps just a little bit. Also, having the second Trencher is really good for follow-up. If we have Harvester in the grave, with our Goliath plays, we will be able to leave Harvester in the grave. We'll definitely have enough material for that. So here we're going to go into River Stormer. River Stormer is going to allow us, detecting the Trencher always, add from our deck to our hand. So here we can see, what do we want to add? Any Earth Machine, or we can send. But we're adding here. So any Earth Machine, we already have a level 10 engraved, so we can make Superdora and Anger Knuckle with the Bullet Loop this hand. So we will just grab our Bullet Train. Depending on what deck you are playing against, you can also go for Derricrane. I just feel like in an unknown match, a Bullet Train's a lot safer because it gets you another +1 in card advantage. Adding back a starter from the graveyard is very, very powerful. Now, we can link this off, And now we realise, okay, well we need a way to clear the Platinum Gadget from the field because we want to make Angarknakle. We don't want to leave Platinum Gadget just lying around. What we can do, if we can just use River Storm as a threat and tribute the Platinum Gadget because it allows us to tribute any machine link monster and bring it back. And then we can just link this off again into our third copy of Goliath. And now here, what we need to do is we want access to our draw 2. So we link these two off into our Ballista. And we'll use the effect of Ballista. Ballista will add Box. And the Box will add Tunneler. And now, because we have Fortress in our graveyard, we can pitch these two, get the Tunneler into the graveyard, and bring back Fortress without having to tribute the Ballista. Gives us access to leaving the Trencher in the grave for follow-up for next turn. Now we can link these two off into our Angarknakle. And now we have more than enough cards so we can activate the effect of Tunneler. What I like to do, because we don't have any box targets left in the deck, since the other trench is in our hand, there's no point shuffling back Gearbox. There is sometimes a point shuffling back Ballista. So let's just see what we get with here. So we have the 3. I do like to shuffle back Gear Gigant. And then we want to leave Gearframe in the graveyard for Regulus. We want to leave Box so we don't draw it, so we can just shuffle back Ballista. So oftentimes shuffling back the 5 extra deck monsters is very useful, and then we can just shuffle, 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 draw 2, okay, and we're hoping for some non-engine cards here. Or Regulus, that will do the trick, and Talons, that's perfect. Okay, so drawing Regulus changes the play. It doesn't change the play at all. It just makes it so much easier for us to get to our desired end board. We will have Superdora, and it means we also don't need to discard the Trencher from our hand to bring back the Citadel, because we can go Regulus targeting the Gearframe. That's why we leave Gearframe in the graveyard, and then we can use the effect of Gearframe to special summon itself. We can use Angarknakle, send Gearframe, target the Citadel. And then we can activate the effect of Bullet Train to special. Can turn these two into a Superdora. Now, another line we could have done here, because this takes both Citadel and Bullet out of our grave, it means that we're going to have to use Superdora this turn, and we won't have it available for turn 3 since we didn't draw heavy forward. Another play we could have done is we could have banished the Trencher for Harvester, and then Harvester on Regulus to make them both level 10, and then we could have used the Harvester and the Bullet Train to make Superdora, and that will leave Citadel in the graveyard. I think that's actually probably the correct play here. So what we will do, we'll leave this in the hand. We will have the Gearframe here under Regulus. We don't even need to use the ability of Angarknakle this turn, because the reason why I'm making this play is because Harvester doesn't have any cards left it can add from our deck to our hand. So that line is pretty much useless since we've drawn the 3rd Trencher. So now we will be adding back the Dozer in our end phase, but that's just so we have a guy to tribute, and then we can bring back our River Storm through its effect with the Goliaths. So Harvester target Regulus to make them both level 10. Special summon. Turn these two into the Superdora, and then we can activate the effect of Superdora, detaching the Bullet Train, targeting Regulus. Now what we have here is we have got our Citadel in the graveyard still, so that means if there is something that comes up that requires us, that will destroy us and we don't have a way to respond with Superdora, or if there's something like we don't need to use Superdora, we still have it available for our turn 3. So I think that's definitely the correct play here. And it also leaves us with Gearframe on Regulus, just as another, I guess, way to, if it will be destroyed, the Gearframe gets destroyed instead. Alrighty, so I will then just set these two, and then I can proceed to the end phase. And in the end phase, I'll activate the effect of the Bullet Train. Because it was sent to the graveyard this turn, it just allowed me to add back the Dozer. Awesome, so where does this hand get us with interacting on our opponent's turn? So first of all, what we do have access to is we have access to Anger Knuckle, and we will be pitching the Trencher to summon back the Bullet Train. Now you may be thinking, why didn't I bring back the Gear Frame and I can discard it with Anger Knuckle? It's because it's nice to have it on Regulus, and also when I discard the Trencher for the Bullet Train, it means even if we're not left with an Earth Machine to tribute for our Dozer, we can use the effect of Trencher and revive our Dozer because we can discard it for the Anger Knuckle either way to bring back our River Stormer, and then go into Goliath, and that will give us access to our Earth Machine plays, and we can continue from there. What I mean by the Anger Knuckle is if they are able to get rid of our whole board here, we will have the Harvester in the grave from Superdora, which we can banish for the Trencher to revive that back. Or if it gets banished, we go Anger Knuckle and we discard the Dozer from our hand to bring it back, and then we can discard this because we will have discarded that for Anger Knuckle on their turn. Or alternatively, we also have Fortress where we can discard these two and bring it back. So lots of different lines we can take there, but I feel like that was a pretty good hand. Okay, so let's have a look at another one. So that was a very good hand. We also had Book of Moon. The reason why I play Book of Moon is because it stops impermanence, Effect Veiler, Mourner sometimes. Mourner would have worked in that hand as well. Targeted negation against our Harvester, because Dozer tributes for cost, we can tribute a face down Earth Machine monster for its effect. So let's have a look at another hand. I will also probably do a hand that's playing through Droll, because Droll is very important, very prevalent this format. This deck does suffer against Droll, but it's not as bad as some decks that just can't play through Droll. The only issue that we can't really play through is Shifter. But that's just a casualty of playing a graveyard deck, this format. So a good cut, shuffle up and cut, and let's draw our hand. So first we have Ash Blossom, Imperm, the Heavy Forward, the Talents. So this is probably a very good hand, probably one of the better hands you could draw. We have 4 non-engine cards and then full combo in our Harvester, because Heavy Forward searches Harvester, and then we can just keep going from there. If they hand trap us, for example, with Ash Blossom on the Heavy Forward, or with Veiler somewhere, with whatever monster hand trap they're trying to use, we have our Talents, and that can, in this hand, I would, depending on what hand trap they used, I would be probably either ripping a card from their hand or drawing 2. I feel like because we've drawn no other engine cards, if we got hand trapped on Heavy Forward, I'd just try and Talents and draw 2, see if we draw into another starter. Okay, so that's not very good, unfortunately. So we've drawn the two bricks. So, but there's no way we would have known that. So in this situation, we just normal summon this. Use the effect to send from deck to graveyard, and probably just send Citadel, and just pass, and I hope we draw something good. Yeah. But in case our Heavy Forward resolves, what we would do is we would just add our Harvester. And let's say here they decide to Droll us. So if they Droll us here, our Harvester can't add, Talents can't add, so we would just go for a Talents rip, and then we would just set the impermanence, set the Book of Moon, because we have Heavy Forward on the field. We can't use imperm from hand, and we want our Book of Moon and just pass. And then on turn 3, we will get a top deck, which would be the Dozer anyway, so that will get the job done. However, let's say there's just no interruptions, so we can normal summon our Harvester, use the effect. If they Veiler or Imperm, we have our Book of Moon to chain to just flip it face down. I'll just show you the Harvester combo real quick in case you don't know this. If you do, feel free to skip ahead. So Harvester adds Dozer, and I'll just ignore these other 4 cards. This is just with Harvester. Then we can link Harvester off for our link 1. Goliath, use the effect of Dozer, and the second effect of Dozer, and we will summon Trencher, you always want to summon Trencher here, because in case you get interrupted, it will give you an extender and you'll be able to always get into the Anger Knuckle or the Ballista, and then the Anger Knuckle depending on how far you get interrupted, how many points. With Tunneler, you sometimes just won't be able to get enough Earth Machines into the graveyard, and this also gives you follow-up for resummoning the Harvester for the next turn. But here, you're just going to want to make the River Stormer, use his effect, detach the Trencher, add an Earth Machine. With this hand, we still want to go for the Bullet Train. However, I don't believe we will have access to draw to the Super Door with this hand unless we draw into a level 10 extender off the... unless we draw into level 10 extender off of our Tunneler, which will just have to be Derek Crane. But there's still a chance of that happening. Otherwise, we just have Anger Knuckle with the Bullet Train loot, and we have our 4 9-engine cards. And hopefully we can draw into even more through our Tunneler. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to link this off into Goliath. Now, here we will use the effect of our Trencher, banishing it and summoning back this. Just link that straight off for the 3rd Goliath. You want to get those in the graveyard as soon as possible. I've seen some decks that some players who will not get those in the graveyard as soon as possible. They'll save one to use on the Tunneler here. I think that is a valid strategy, but we already have our Bullet Train in hand, so there is no way that we aren't going to be able to link that off. So what we're doing is we're activating Ballista. We'll just go box for Tunneler again. Tunneler effect, tribute this, summon from hand, then Bullet Train, and we can link those two into our Anger Knuckle. So again, these are a 9-engine, we have the box in hand at the moment, where we use the effect, and we just always want to put back, we still have a box target in the deck, but we also just need to have enough cards to shuffle back. So it's going to be Harvester over Dozer, usually because Harvester will run out of cards to special summon to search from the deck, and we still have one special summon target for Dozer, which means it will give us 2 bodies on the field, which I feel is better. We do still have the River Stormer access, and we have our Gearbox in hand if we need a normal summon to tribute for the Dozer. So, drawing 2 cards, we have a Fortress and a Redeployment. Here, we are Earth Machine locked, so the Redeployment line will not really be useful in this hand in terms of getting us to Super Door. I feel like it's better saving it for follow-up. For the next turn, having an additional starter, because we haven't gone through any of the Machina cards, and just having an additional starter is very useful. Fortress is really good for getting Earth Machines into the graveyard. So here, I'm just going to set our 2 cards. What we can also do, this does play into Super Poly somewhat, just depends on what you think your opponent will have. We can just special summon our Fortress in defense position by discarding itself and the Gearbox. This will just give us an extra line of defense, so to make sure we don't get OTK'd. Although I doubt our opponent can OTK us through these 3 interruptions. But moving to the end phase, we will use the effect of Bullet Train, add back our Dozer, and we're left with a pretty strong board. We have our Anger Knuckle, which will be sending itself in this hand to bring back our Bullet Train. That way, if they try to clear the Bullet Train, they will have to give us a plus in the end phase, which will be either adding back Fortress, which you don't want to do, or adding back the Gearbox, and then the Gearbox will give us a search for the Trencher, which was always good. Okay, so I will do one last hand. Okay, let's see. Triple Tactics, Dozer, Urgent Schedule, Impermanence, and Heavy Forward. So this hand plays perfectly through Droll because we've drawn Dozer. However, this doesn't mean you should play more than one Dozer. I just don't think it's worth it. It's always searchable. The Infinitrack engine is very powerful at starting off your plays, but in terms of grind game, all you really need is Riverstormer to be in the graveyard and at least one Goliath in the extra deck, and that just allows you to keep comboing. So this hand will play through Droll though, so we can show you how we do that. The Talents hand rip through Droll is also nice. And we always want to go for Talents hand rip through Droll because you can't draw. So we'll start with a heavy forward, and even though we get Drolled, we still always add Harvester off of heavy forward. Even if we've drawn Dozer, we still need the normal summon. Let's say we get Drolled, that's fine. We normal this, no effect because of Droll. We link it into Goliath. Oops, where's it gone? Okay. And then we use the effect of our Dozer to attribute. And your opponent will probably complain about you being a sack, so you can activate Dozer, special summon from deck. Then make Riverstormer. Riverstormer has an important part of its ability. It can either add from deck to hand or send from deck to graveyard. So we'll activate the effect and we will send our Bullet Train from deck to graveyard. Then we will link the Riverstormer into a second Goliath. We need to save one in the extra deck to make sure we can access Riverstormer on turn 3. But linking into the second one is good because it fuels Earth Machines in the graveyard. So using the effect of Riverstormer, we will bring that back, banishing Trencher to Reborn Harvester, and linking those two off into our Anger Knuckle. No, we're not making Ballista because obviously we can't add. So we have our Anger Knuckle here. We now will set 2 cards, our Urgent Schedule, our Impermanence, moving to the end phase, activating the effect of Bullet Train, adding back our Dozer from our graveyard to our hand. And these talents, if we were Drolled, we would use to rip. So we've seen the opponent's hand. We add back the card. We have one interruption. We have Urgent Schedule, which will give us access to our Citadel that we can then send with Anger Knuckle, making it almost impossible for our opponent to OTK if you don't misplay with the timing of that. I've definitely done that a couple of times, but it's all a learning process. This deck, I feel, has a very high skill ceiling, and it's just lots of fun to play, try and work out the lines. So on our opponent's turn, I'll just explain how you can avoid being OTK'd with this deck, with this setup rather. So one way you can do it is if your opponent just will be committing to one monster, say you don't want to, we have Imperm, so again, stuff like access code, that's not really coming into effect because on res of the attack and you can just Imperm it. But what we can do, say I have like a Lingeribo, an access code, so we can, after that, we can use our effect of our Anger Knuckle, sending itself for cost, targeting the Bullet Train, and then even if opponent only has one monster, when we pass priority and if they pass back, we can use as Chain Link 2 Urgent Schedule because we now control no monsters. This will summon out our Gear Frame in case we draw Regulus, and our Citadel. And we can use the effect of our Bullet Train to bring that back. However, if this is more risky because it means you don't send the Citadel to the graveyard with your Anger Knuckle, and as such your opponent will maybe be able to OTK if they know to get Citadel last, which they should, or you still have the 3 bodies. So let's say they put up 2 monsters like a Lingeribo and Access Code, which will be nullifying our Impermanence. We can use Urgent Schedule here, and this will summon Citadel and Gear Frame still. But on resolution of the Urgent Schedule, if our opponent does not have anything, we can use the effect of Anger Knuckle and send the Citadel to reborn the Bullet Train. That way we will be able to have access to our Citadel. If they choose to clear our Gear Frame, our Anger Knuckle, but not the Bullet Train, then we can use our Citadel to get rid of the Bullet Train and still get to add back in the end phase, which in this case will be our Gear Frame, to give us a normal summon for the next turn. So yeah, with this deck, I feel doing test hands helps to get the basic combos in your brain, but in order to be able to play it properly in a tournament setting, you want to just get lots of test games in. Practice playing through Droll's a big one this format. Practice playing around hand traps, practice playing interboards, just getting a good testing team with friends going is always a good idea. Play games online, just really helps. This deck just, if you know how to play this deck well, it really rewards you. As I said before, it has a very high skill ceiling. So yeah. Now, in terms of siding with this deck, I think it's something important to cover. At the moment, the side deck's still a work in progress. I'm siding Droll, not maining at this format. I feel like Droll has to be in your decks one way or another. I have it in the side, that may change. Have a Jizukuru, Kaiju's in the side. This card's very powerful because it's a Kaiju, so against stuff like Pearly Noir, Access Code, Arise Heart, etc. Just fields which will end on one singular boss monster. This card's very useful. Now, the reason why we played this over Gameciel, I was on Gameciel for a bit, however, on the Earth Machine Facebook group, I was introduced to the concept of this card being, first of all, if you draw 2, it gets you 1 level 10 monster onto your field. It's also a card you can send with Anger Knuckle, since Anger Knuckle only needs level 10 machines, and same with all your trains, they just need level 10 monsters, etc. So it can also be used as an extender if in a pinch or if you draw multiples to enable you to go for an OTK. And the 3300 attack points doesn't really come up ever. It hasn't come up for me. Next, they have the Dark Holes. This is just good going second. It is interesting. I feel like this is better than Raigeki because often your monsters, first of all, the main reason is that it outs Ibli. We just don't have a way to deal with that card otherwise because the extra deck space is so tight and the Lingariba would lock up our monster zones. However, I still think it's better, especially in this deck, because first of all, you can use it, wipe the board, and then trigger your Citadel in your graveyard if your opponent has been playing around it. Second, often your monsters will have the Infinitrack Goliath on them. So, yes, so that's why I believe the Dark Hole is better than Raigeki. Because, yeah, triggering Citadel on your turn is just very powerful. It enables you to go for a quick OTK. Next up, the Lightning Storm Duster. Where I play, there's not too many Labyrinth, or they seem to not convert very well through Swiss, unfortunately. So this just doesn't really come up. I just never seem to get paired into Lab players. So I'm thinking of just getting rid of these, but yes, these are only for trap deck matchups. You never side in the Lightning Storms as like 4th and 5th Dark Hole. It's just not worth it. This is just basically 3 copies of Duster. Okay, and then you do want a nice going first Floodgate to draw into through your Tunneler. So we have the Anti-Spell Fragrance. I feel like this is the most effective, this format. It hurts a lot of decks. It doesn't hurt you very much. You have a quick play spells you can use on your opponent's turn. It doesn't conflict with your Book of Moon or Urgent Schedules if you set them and then flip the Anti-Spell. So that's what I have for the side. When I'm going first, if Anti-Spell works against the deck, I will bring it in, and then I'll just side out the weakest hand trap, Astral Imperm. If they don't play hand traps, I will side out Talents and Book of Moon if they don't play hand traps, because Book of Moon is mainly there just to protect against the impermanence on the Harvest, because you really need that one to resolve. Okay, one more thing which I feel is important to bring up that didn't come up through any of the test hands. If you have gone through your Harvester combo lines, etc., and then you summon your River Stormer. Let's say you have this, you have the Book of Moon. It's another useful interaction with Book of Moon. You have the River Stormer out. You say you got like the Dozer and the second Trencher under it. Right, this is Dozer, this is Trencher. Then on summon, because the effect is Ignition, it doesn't activate, your opponent will go, oh, okay, they can like Book of Moon it. Or if they want to, yeah, if they want a Book of Moon on summon, that's a good place to Book of Moon this deck, or interact with any flipping face down effect like the invoked monster. That is just a good the good place to interact with it. I feel that's the best place to book. You can also book one of the cards you summon off Dozer, but in both of those situations, if you have another Infinitrate level 5 extender, so either the Trencher or the Tunneler, you can use the effect, tribute the Riverstormer, summon it out, and then you can listen to Goliath. You can use Riverstormer, tribute the Goliath, bring it back, and then you can use Goliath to attach, and then you can use Riverstorm's effect, because you haven't activated it yet if they book you on summon. Awesome, thank you for watching this video. I hope it helps with your understanding of how to play Earth Machines and how to play around it as well. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Until next time, bye.